Funding for the production of Louisiana, the state we're in, is provided in part by the Ziegler Foundation of Jennings and Gulf States Utilities, helping Louisiana bridge the gap to our energy future.
A visit to the site of the World's Fair this week left no doubts. The party is over. Now the cleanup begins. But while strong backs, hammers, wrenches, and other equipment will be all that's needed to clear what remains at the site, it will not be as easy to remove the cloud of suspicion that 2 grand jury investigations have cast over the fair and its operations.
The fair has left some other problems behind as well. When it's all said and done, the financially troubled expo may lose between $100 and $150 million. What happened? What went wrong? How did a fair that offered so much promise for Louisiana turn into a financial flop? Tonight, some answers. Good evening, I'm Ken Johnson.
And I'm Robyn Eking. Thanks for joining us for this week's edition of Louisiana, the state we're in.
Tonight, a look back at the troubled 1984 Louisiana World Exposition. Last weekend, the fair ended its tumultuous 6-month run, having drawn about 5 million fewer visitors than expected, saddled with a huge multi-million-dollar debt, and sporting a big black eye as the worst financial flop in the history of World's Fairs. But many people who attended this Louisiana extravaganza say the fair got a bum rap. They love the fair. They believe it was a big plus for Louisiana. But clearly, the expo had more than its share of problems. And all over the state, people who liked it and people who didn't are asking the same question: what went wrong? When the 1984 Louisiana World's Fair opened its gates on May 12th and more than 83,000 people jammed onto the fair site, most of them giving it rave reviews, even some of the critics began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't turn out to be the star of World's Fairs. After all, in the beginning, in the pre-fair publicity, this was billed as the Great Celebration, a spectacular 6-month-long party in charming old New Orleans that was certain to capture the fancy of millions of people from around the world. But the 1984 Louisiana World's Fair never lived up to its advance billing. Oh, it was a good show. The problem, 5 million people who were supposed to see it never did. What went wrong? Well, there are as many opinions as there are contractors who are still owed money by the fair. But 2 things are mentioned time and time again no matter who you talk with. Most people say bad publicity and bad management killed the fair.
People heard so much bad publicity about it that they didn't want to come. They didn't want to spend their money to come all the way down here when they would maybe be unhappy, and they didn't want to take the chance. It could go too many other places and know they were getting their money. So until the word got back that it was great, go, have a good time, they didn't come. And I think they would have done the figures that they projected to do. And had they done it, I think the fair would have been a success. It was a little bit over budgeted, I think. I think they did spend a lot of money on a lot of things that they didn't have to, but they went all out and they gave it a good shot, and I just think they gave it a damn good try, and, you know, problems happen.
The local news media has been wrapped because of the bad publicity, yet in a way all they were doing was reporting on a situation that existed, the financial problems. What could the press do?
I agree with you. All they were doing was reporting, but they didn't have to emphasize all the bad. They didn't show any of the good of the fair. All they did was report on the problems. They didn't show you, look what's going on here, look how wonderful this is, look how great this is. All they did was say, look how bad this is and look how bad this is.
What about the bad publicity?
That's what killed it, I think. I think that's what was the main thing. The last day, one of the channels had interviews with people and showing what a great time it was, and everyone was saying how wonderful it was. But they never did that before the fair closed. It was always the fair's in trouble. People were coming from all over the country and say, well, we thought it was going to be closed. It's much better than we ever expected it to be. You know, and it was just because the media never let it be known how good it was.
Privately, many fair officials and organizers believe the expo was doomed from the beginning. First of all, they say the fair's marketing plan was aimed at the wrong people. Secondly, there probably weren't enough people to begin with. According to studies, only 22 million people live within 150 miles of New Orleans. By contrast, 150 million people live within 150 miles of Knoxville, Tennessee, site of the '82 World's Fair. Critics also say the fair was woefully undercapitalized. They blame the federal government's failure to offer more support. They point to management errors. They say the New Orleans World's Fair followed too closely behind the Knoxville World's Fair. All of this hurt, but publicity about the fair's financial problems may have hurt the most. Every time a new story surfaced, fair officials say it was another nail in their coffin. Stories like the ones dealing with contractors who were never paid.
Well, we're in a very bad situation with LWE. They owe the contractors in the neighborhood of $16–17 million, which we have no way of recouping this. They say that they're in Chapter 11 and that we will be paid on the receipts that they will receive from the things they sell here. Now, from the way it looks, since I'm around here looking, maybe they might get $1 million. Now, how are they going to pay the number of contractors they owe any substantial amount? Out of $1 million, and they owe us a neighborhood of $17 million.
You're a small contractor. You yourself, you're owed about $100,000. How do you absorb a loss like that?
Oh, man, it's just horrible. I have some property that I'm putting up for sale. I've had to lay off. I had 28 men when I was out here. Now I'm down to maybe 16 men. And I owe the federal government. They're on my tail now, so it's just a horrible situation. I'm just about out of business.
Why did you extend the fair credit?
Oh, you would extend something this large, without any doubt, you'll extend them credit. I thought that this was the thing, to come along and get me in pretty good shape. But actually, they're putting me out of business. I've wrote the mayor of the city of New Orleans. He has answered back saying there's nothing he could do. I wrote the governor. The governor has turned me over to Mr. DeHammercourt. I've talked to him, but now his committee is defunct. I don't think there's nothing he can do for me.
So, essentially, you've been getting the runaround.
Oh, positively. Now, you can imagine now, we worked here. Our obligation was to get this fair open. We worked here 24 hours a day for about a month. And I said, trying to get this fair open. We got the fair open. And then we put out our hands to get some money. They said there's no money. Now, I know that someone should have known there wasn't any money when we was doing the work. So they tell us, well, let's wait. And we'll wait next week and see how the gate receipts are, then we'll pay you. And we haven't been paid anything yet.
Chances are many contractors will never be paid anything. No one at this point knows for certain just how much money the expo actually owes, but there have been reports that the losses could run between $100 and $150 million, making it the worst financial flop in the history of World's Fairs. According to original projections, the Louisiana Expo was expected to attract 11 million visitors, but the final tally of 7.3 million visitors fell far short. Still, people who did go to the fair loved it.
Well, it's kind of sad, but it was a wonderful fair, and unfortunately didn't get the national press, I feel, that would have brought the folks here to the fair. As I traveled around the United States, I was disappointed to find out that there was little knowledge of the fair. For example, Los Angeles, really the folks that I know out there had no idea there was a fair going on in New Orleans. The New York market never seemed to be touched from folks I talked to up there.
Was it a poor job of marketing, do you think? Or do you think people are just kind of played out on the idea of World's Fairs?
Well, I think it was twofold. I think our marketing didn't target the right target, evidently. And secondly, that the bad press that was given us nationally, the only thing we ever heard about the fair was its indebtedness, and that seemed to be the main emphasis of the national press. So I was disappointed. I think it was a wonderful World's Fair. I visited them all the way back to 1934 fair, or 1937, whatever it was, New York, and I've been to the Seattle one. I was at Louisville, and this is the best. And it was disappointing to see the poor.
It was an artistic success to your way of thinking.
Very definitely. In fact, I guess if anybody can find fault with us, we spent too much money on the artistic end of the fair.
It was a real good show. It was a fantastic show. We've been here since September 12, 1983. We fed all the construction workers, and we made it all the way through fair time. We had a ball, we made some money, and golly, we had a real good time.
I understand you are from India. You were here for the entire 6 months. What are your impressions of the '84 Expo?
Well, this is the 7th World's Fair that I'm attending, and you cannot compare this with the more extravagant fairs like the Montreal or the New York World's Fair. But you can, in fairness, compare it with Knoxville and with Spokane World's Fair in Washington. And I think compared to those fairs, this was made pretty much as good as they were. And I really don't know what all the bad publicity was about.
You enjoyed the fair. You thought it was a good fair.
I enjoyed it myself, though particularly as far as our location was concerned, it was a terrible location. We were hidden behind a ramp and not many people really got to see us. But overall, I think it was a nice fair. And again, as I say, I don't know what the bad publicity was all about.
Well, I thought it was a good show. One of the best we've ever been to. We've been to 11 so far. And I believe for the money that was spent, a lot was built. People just don't realize how much it really takes to build one of these fairs. And I think a lot of the bad publicity, especially from the station that was on site, I thought they would support it more than they did. And every time something went wrong, I believe that everyone just kind of jumped on it.
That may be true, but the media did not create the fair's financial problems. Beleaguered Expo President Peter Spurney, who has refused to be interviewed since the Expo closed its doors, and key members of his management team repeatedly raised construction costs. This meant a larger number of visitors was needed for the fair to break even. Spurney kept brushing off the problem, believing that New Orleans' reputation as a fun city with a delightful old world charm would see the fair through. He was wrong. And a lot of people, contractors, concessionaires, even taxpayers, are paying for that mistake. But despite its much publicized problems, tens of thousands of people shrugged off the stories and jammed the fair during its closing weeks. It was a time many people say they will never forget.
I don't know, it was just a really great experience. I had a lot of fun. And
something you'll always remember.
Yeah, although there were times when I was cursing it out to myself, I was really sorry to see it go.
I made it a personal point to talk to as many out-of-towners as I could. And my biggest thing was that people would tell me we didn't know if the fair would be open. And I'll quote a man from Florida who said, "It is so much better than we were ever led to believe it was going to be." And he had just covered the river. He hadn't gotten over here yet. So I think it was just people didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what it was going to be. But I've been to Disneyland and Disney World, and I've been all over the country, and this was a spectacular. We won't forget it soon.
Well, financial problems aren't the only troubles the fair has left in its wake. Months before the Expo's final days, it was revealed that a federal grand jury had begun looking into allegations of corruption involving the fair and its operations. A state grand jury has also been investigating. That probe reportedly includes some charges that concessionaires with political connections got better deals than others. But it's the federal investigation that's drawn the most attention, following reports that it began on the heels of an FBI sting operation at the fair. It's believed that this operation has touched some of Louisiana's most influential business and political figures. A visit to the site of the World's Fair this week left no doubts that the party is over and only the cleanup remains. While strong backs, hammers, wrenches, rented trucks, and other equipment will be all that's needed to clear the site of the 6-month celebration, it won't be quite as easy to remove the cloud of suspicion that 2 grand jury investigations have cast over the fair and its operations. Several months before the fair closed down, U.S. Attorney John Volz revealed that a federal grand jury had begun an investigation into alleged corruption at the exposition. The grand jury reportedly began its work following a lengthy FBI undercover operation.
This involves both public officials and persons who are not public officials. And I think there is a strong probability that we will seek indictments before too long.
Early in October, indictments were returned against 3 men. Former fair marketing director Frank Kennedy, his son Gary, and a Mississippi businessman have been accused of operating a kickback scheme involving the sale of souvenirs. Earlier this month, a Shreveport newspaper reported that part of the FBI probe involved a sting operation that had touched top Louisiana business and political figures. One of those mentioned, Lieutenant Governor Bobby Freeman, who says he believes that he accepted money from a man working in connection with the sting. Part of the grand jury investigation reportedly involves an allegation that a state employee offered to help the man get a contract to demolish the amphitheater at the fair in return for a ticket to a fundraising trip intended to pay off the lieutenant governor's campaign debts. The state employee, Gerald Derbies, had been sent by the governor's office to work for Freeman during the fair. He has since resigned his position.
Robyn, I don't have anything to hide. I don't. As I told that jury and told him, I don't steal, I don't make deals, I don't cut deals. If I did, I certainly wouldn't have had a tremendous, almost a $500,000 campaign debt for 4 years. That's not my style. I don't know how people interpret things when they hear certain things, and you're not responsible for, even though you may be responsible for people under you, you can't control all of their actions or exactly how they do things or what type of course they take in order to accomplish something.
Freeman says while he did accept a $1,000 deposit for a ticket to his fundraising trip from a man he now believes was working for the FBI, he made no promises.
Never did I ever tell anyone then or before or after, look, I'm going to help you get a contract or if you'll do this, you're going to get it. That never happened. It was one of those type of sting operations where they try and come in and do that. But evidently, I don't know if that was the federal government's money he bought his ticket for or not. But it was there, it was deposited, and he got what he paid for.
Did you know this man?
No.
Who did you think he was?
I had no idea. A lot of these people, I don't know who they are, you know, that come in. They're in fact, a great number of these people that went on this trip I met for the first time on the trip.
While he has not been told that he is a target of the grand jury investigation, the lieutenant governor says he has been told he is suspect. Freeman was invited to appear before the panel in September, joining a long list of public and private officials who have testified, including Jules LeBlanc, a close associate of Governor Edwards. LeBlanc, an attorney, was allegedly hired by the FBI stingman to help him get business with the expo. Another top public official who has appeared before both the federal grand jury and a state grand jury that is also reviewing the fair is Speaker of the House John Alario. Alario is the chairman of the Louisiana Exposition Authority, the state agency that handled state funds to the fair.
Well, in both cases, I was invited to appear. I was told in both instances that I was not a target or a suspect in the investigation. And in both instances, it was more an informational type of meeting.
Do you feel that you have done anything wrong?
No, absolutely. I don't think I've done anything wrong. I may have made some judgment errors in some decisions, but not in anything illegal.
Neither the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office would comment on the progress of their investigations. While a visit to the World's Fair site this week made it clear that the party is over, it appears questions about what happened behind the scenes of the celebration will linger for some time.
Long before anyone ever dreamed of holding a $350 million World's Fair in New Orleans, many Louisianians got their enjoyment and entertainment from listening to the radio. In the late 1940s, following the end of World War II, the Louisiana Hayride became the launching pad for a new era in country and Western music. Unlike the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, you didn't have to be a known star to succeed at the Hayride. Radio station KWKH, with its 50,000 watts of power, gave countless musicians, many of them with unknown talent, a chance to do their thing. Well, next Wednesday at 8 o'clock, Louisiana Public Broadcasting will trace the history of the Hayride in a special one-hour documentary. It's called Cradle of the Stars, the story of the Louisiana Hayride. Tonight, we're going to give you a sneak peek of this fascinating show.
Country music worked its way into the hearts of people long before Nashville and its bright lights. Its stories were first told in the churches, on the front porches, in the homes and places of people sitting around picking and singing. It began in the rural South, in the hills and valleys of West Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas, in small towns with names like Marianna, Natchez, Pie Town, and in cities like this one, Shreveport, Louisiana. In fact, that's where I was born. My daddy, Hank Williams, was playing on a show called the Louisiana Hayride. That was back when country music artists were called hillbillies and TV stood for Tennessee Valley. Daddy made history on the Louisiana Hayride, but so did a lot of others who came to radio station KWKH in the late 40s and 50s. Folks started calling the Hayride the cradle of the stars. The halls of the old municipal auditorium are silent now, but their shadows remember a past filled with Saturday night performances by Webb Pierce, Farron Young, Slim Whitman, Elvis Presley, and Johnny Cash. The magic fiddle of Dauber Johnson, the crying steel guitar of Hoot Raines, and Floyd Kramer's rolling piano chords. It's a story about good days and those that saw a lot of tears. It's a tale that takes place in the years following the Second World War, when many people were ready to hope again. It's about dreams that came true and some that didn't. It's the story of the Louisiana Hayride.
It's time to remind you that in the Arklatex in the Central Time Zone, the time is now 8 o'clock. The Louisiana Hayride!
Originating once again from the City Auditorium in Shreveport, Louisiana, with a whole host of your favorite country music stars.
And again, the Hayride special will air next Wednesday at 8 o'clock right here on LPB. Finally tonight, if you've ever taken to the roads to get your exercise on a bicycle, you already know how tricky it can be to maneuver through heavy traffic. Imagine trying to do it without your sight. Well, it's no problem for 9 students from the Louisiana State School for the Visually Impaired. Today, they began a journey by bicycle that will take them over hundreds of miles of heavily traveled roads, all the way from Baton Rouge to Fort Walton Beach, Florida. Imagine taking to the road for a 400-mile bicycle trip. Imagine doing it without part or all of your sight. It's no dream for these students from Louisiana School for the Visually Impaired. They have every intention of going the distance, 400 miles from Baton Rouge to Fort Walton Beach, Florida.
There's the general sports cliche which saying anytime you succeed in sports, it will carry over into your normal life, and we go along with that. We feel that it's also even more beneficial for these blind kids because they've been behind. We've been there. We have to catch up where they've been lacking throughout their whole life. They're not been taught to go out and exert themselves in any way, and we have to make up for all that lost time. So that's the reason why we're pushing for a bigger trip of this nature. 9 students from the school will be making the trip. Some are partially sighted, some totally blind. We started off with the idea that we wanted to just ride bikes with the kids, and we screened the kids through a testing program here at the school, which an LSU group came in and helped us test. We got roughly 30 kids out to first ride the bikes. Of those kids, we've got 9 that showed an increased interest in wanting to ride. We didn't cut anybody on the program. We allowed everybody that wanted to ride on a longer trip to ride, and we ended up with 9, and they wanted to go on a long trip. I've been to Florida a lot and have traveled a lot of tours and decided that a nice trip to Florida would be nice. It would give them a cross-cultural experience, give them exposure, and also would bring an exposure to the general public outside of Louisiana. We wanted to let other people know that visually impaired does not mean impairment to their abilities and what they can do.
While the riders were eager to tackle the trip from the start, there were others who weren't quite as enthusiastic. What about your family? What was their reaction when you told them that you were going to be getting into this? Were they worried?
My mom said like it was, you know, some kind of crime riding 400 miles. She said, "Are you going to ride that far?" And I said, "Yes, Mom." You know, and that was her reaction. So she signed it for me to go, and I guess she wanted me to go.
Now, 400 miles, that's a pretty sizable bike trip for somebody with perfect vision. Does it worry you at all getting out there on the roads, not being able to see very well?
No. Just gonna get out there and do my best. Hope not to run over anybody.
How did you feel after your, how did you feel Sunday after you came back? You didn't hurt?
Recreation Director Ron Hodges has helped train the students, supervising daily practice rides, stressing safety on the roads.
In any kind of biking or any kind of sport of this nature, there is a certain amount of risk, and I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that we are foolproof as far as safety. We run a risk every time we come out, but we feel that it's a calculated risk, and actually a better risk than what most cyclists take because of our foul vehicle and precautions that we have taken.
Baton Rouge merchants are supporting the trip, donating everything from refreshments to special shoes for cycling. Once the riders reach Florida, they will be treated to free hotel rooms and activities planned by Fort Walton community groups. It's a different kind of a trip, the first in the United States. For the students, it's also a chance not to be different, a chance to be just like everyone else, working and planning to see a dream come true. You excited about leaving?
Yes, indeed. I'm ready.
What are you going to do when you get to Fort Walton, you think?
I think I may go cruise dudes somewhere around.
And of course, we'd like to wish the bikers a very safe trip. They did leave this morning, Ken, even though it was raining out. They can't see, it was raining, but they're tough. They're ready for the trip, and they're going to go ahead with it.
It's a fascinating story, Robyn, and again, we wish them the best of luck. That's our show for tonight. We hope you enjoyed it. Beth Courtney is on special assignment, but she will be back with us again next Friday. Until then, I'm Ken Johnson.
And I'm Robyn Eking. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
Funding for the production of Louisiana, the State We're In, is provided in part by the Ziegler Foundation of Jennings and Gulf States Utilities, helping Louisiana bridge the gap to our energy future.